There's a little skipping around when I'm reading, so if it seems like there's holes in it, it's because there is. Now, what I want you to understand is that I'm sort of skipping right to a point where something has happened in my main character Quinn's life that has shaken her so badly that she's finally really considering looking into that portal that she knows another life exists on the other side and seeing what's there. She's very shaken, because her mother died. She doesn't have her mother to talk to, so it's a very, very difficult time for her. Okay. I'm not going in, Quinn thought as she oiled the hinges on the ancient ironing board, unless I know for sure I can get back. I'll just stick my head in and take a look, see what it's like. If it's a one-way journey, I'll stay here, but at least I'll know, just in case. She put down the can of WD-40 and once again grabbed the top of the ironing board. This time, she pulled it open 3 inches and closed it, testing the hinge. She did that a few times to let the oil work its way into the mechanism. Okay, she thought, now. Quinn closed her eyes and pulled the ironing board all the way down. She stood there for a moment with her lids shut tight, feeling the energy from the other side, sensing her life with Eugene pulsing close by. Then she opened her eyes and looked. Like the crack in the porcelain sink, the opening appeared as an ordinary fissure, a silvery, jagged line against the rough concrete. This one was vertical and almost 3 feet long. She put her hand toward it, feeling that familiar resistance. Quinn rose up on her knees and ran both hands together down the length of the crack. She did it a second time, spreading her fingers like butterfly wings so the fissure would be big enough to stick her head into. Quinn looked into the opening, her heart pounding. Though she could see nothing but blackness, she sensed Eugene's presence close by. She felt movement, a bustling kind of energy, as if Eugene were getting dressed and ready to go someplace. Quinn looked deep into the middle of the darkness and saw a bit of light. It was nothing more than a pinprick, but her thumping heart began to race. Something was there. Quinn brought her face forward toward the fissure in her basement wall and pushed her head right inside the hole. She had to see, once and for all. The pinhole of light seemed to recede. She poked her head in farther, but couldn't get any closer. It was moving away from her. I should get a flashlight, she thought, and tried to back up, but she couldn't. Quinn was being pulled inside. She tried to fight it, tried to brace herself against the solid walls of the foundation, but the force was too strong, and suddenly her entire body was sucked inside the darkness. Terror seized her, but only for a second, and then it vanished, like vapor. A calmness overtook her, and she floated gently as she was pulled along in the darkness. It was like swimming without effort, the air around her, cozy and quiet. Quinn closed her eyes. The tranquility was intoxicating, and she wanted the feeling to last. She lost track of time, lost any real sense of conscious thought. Slowly, an awareness entered her. She realized she was in warm water now, no longer in darkness. With a jolt, she was Quinn again, and she was underwater in a very real place with 3 dimensions and an ordinariness that took her by surprise. She sat up and looked around. She was in a warm bathtub, and everything about the room was familiar. The striped shower curtain, the sink, the toothbrushes. That was her blow dryer on the shelf above the commode, Eugene's Rogaine on the counter. All the consciousness of this life was as clear to her as her life with Louis and Isaac. This was her bathroom, the one she shared with Eugene in the Manhattan high-rise they had moved into 3 years before. Eugene was on the other side of the door dressing to go out. He was being interviewed about the award he had just been nominated for. Minutes earlier, she hadn't known any of this, but now it was as if she had lived this life all along. She closed her eyes and pictured Isaac and Lois. Yes, it was all still there. She was as present in one life as she was in the other. Quinn was straddling both worlds. There was a sharp rap on the door. "Are you going to be in there all day?" Eugene asked. "I'll be right out," she heard herself say. Quinn stepped out of the tub and put her hand on her stomach. No baby, no pregnancy. It was just her and Eugene. She looked back at the tub, her lifeline home. So that's section 1. Now I'm going to read one much smaller section at the end of that chapter. The phone rang, and Quinn stopped what she was doing. Ignore it, she told herself. Notice that this is in the same scene as before. But on the second ring, she rose and went into the bedroom, where there was an old phone on the nightstand next to the bed. It was a 50-year-old collectible she and Eugene had bought in the Berkshires last fall. He had gotten a kick out of the fact that this heavy black relic, the kind of phone he remembered from his early childhood, was now an antique, and so they bought it, assured by the store owner that it worked. Of course, it had a heavy old dial and no caller ID, so they didn't use it much, but Eugene enjoyed the nostalgia of it. It rang a third time, and Quinn just stared. On the fourth ring, she picked it up. Hello? She'd expected her voice to sound strange, but it didn't. A bit nervous, maybe, but that was all. It was just her, Quinn, picking up the phone in her bedroom. Hi, kiddo, said the voice on the other end. Quinn pulled her robe tighter against the sudden chill that ran through her. She swallowed against a lump in her throat before she could speak. Mom?
Wow.